Margaret Whitmore yanked the bridal bouquet out of little Amara's hands, the 8-year-old still clutching petals in shock, and hurled it straight into the gutter. Her shrill, scornful voice cut through the air, making several guests flinch. Spittle flew landing on the polished leather shoes of the groom Devin Williams. He stood frozen, jaw clenched, while Zara, his new bride, clutched her ivory wedding gown, eyes brimming with tears as she fought to stay composed. 60 guests stood in stunned silence. Before anyone could react, Margaret kicked over the champagne table. Crystal flutes shattered fragments glittering in the late afternoon sun along Maple Ridge Drive. You people think you can turn this high-end neighborhood into a slum? Not a chance. Her crimson-tipped finger jabbed toward the elegant reception setup. Devin adjusted the cufflinks etched with the city seal, the flash of light off the metal like a quiet signal. In the thick of the tension, Margaret pulled out her phone and dialed 911 with theatrical urgency. Her voice shook with feigned distress. "I need the police right away. There's a loud, drunken, possibly drug-fueled crowd gathering without permission. They don't belong here." The calm voice of the dispatcher only underscored her hysteria. Pressed for details, Margaret snapped, "I pay $8,000 in property taxes for peace and quiet. And now this whole block is being destroyed by some kind of ghetto street party." Devin stepped closer, his palms open in a conciliatory gesture. "Ma'am, surely we can handle this more peacefully." Margaret spun on him, shrieking, "Don't you dare lecture me." Still unsatisfied, Margaret opened the neighborhood app Safe Haven Willowbrook and went live to 47 followers. "Emergency neighbors, defend our community from these intruders." Comments rolled in, "Call the board, property values will tank." Yet across the lawn, Zara's 16-year-old niece Destiny quietly opened Instagram Live and whispered, "Everyone needs to see this. Our neighbor has lost her mind at my aunt's wedding." Her stream grew from a few dozen to hundreds within minutes. Margaret's phone crackled with a dispatcher's radio call. "Unit 23, en route to 847 Maple Ridge Drive, ETA 12 minutes. Margaret threw her head back triumphantly. "Hear that the cops are coming. You're finished." But Devin calmly withdrew a thick folder from inside his tuxedo and handed it over. "Ma'am, every permit has been signed off by the city." Margaret snatched it, flipping through, then sneered. "Could be fake. For all I know, someone in your family at City Hall rubber-stamped this." Doorbell cameras across the street captured every second in sharp detail. Now 3 live streams were rolling at once. Margaret wheeled on the catering staff, barking, "Show me your green cards right now. I'm recording you all for evidence." The servers, dressed in crisp uniforms, carried on with trays of canapés, steady and professional. Just then, Devin's best man, a U.S. Marine Corps officer in full dress blues, took one measured step forward. His presence shifted the atmosphere, but Margaret was oblivious. "We've lived here for 3 years, ma'am. We've met before Devin began." Margaret slashed across his words. "I don't care what you think you are. This is a community with standards." Her fingers flew over her phone in the neighborhood chat, "Emergency at Maple Ridge. Everyone come witness." Within minutes, 3 neighbors arrived, Mrs. Patterson clutching violation notices, Mr. Kozlov holding a decibel meter here, and a teenager across the street. Live streaming on TikTok with the tag #Willowbrook Wedding already drawing hundreds of views. An 8-year-old boy, Marcus Devin's nephew, tugged at his sleeve. "Uncle, why does she hate our family?" Devin bent down, his voice warm and steady. "Sometimes people forget that real community is built on love, not division." Margaret overheard and screeched, "Don't brainwash that child with your victim talk. This is about property values." Meanwhile, Destiny's live stream had swelled past 150 viewers, comments pouring in. "That neighbor's lost her mind. Poor couple, they don't deserve this." Then came the soft, steady tap of a cane. Evelyn Devin's 78-year-old grandmother approached her lapel, pinned with city council badges from 1987 and 2012. Her voice carried the weight of 4 decades. "Young lady, I've lived in Willowbrook for 40 years. This is what neighbors owe each other." Margaret tilted her chin, feigning disdain. You don't understand how this neighborhood is changing. Evelyn smiled gently. I understand more than you think. The real question is, do you understand yourself? Zara stood with her bridesmaids fighting tears, her ivory gown trembling with each breath. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, ratcheting the tension taut as wire. Margaret shouted into her phone. The police are almost here. Finally, someone to restore order. Devon's cufflinks caught the sunset again, flashing like a warning. Moments later, 2 squad cars turned into Maple Ridge. Officers Martinez and Rodriguez stepped out, scanning the scene with sharp, seasoned eyes. Margaret rushed forward, shrieking, "Thank God you're here! They've been rioting for hours, blocking traffic, drinking, destroying everything! Arrest them!" But Martinez's gaze took in the pristine banquet tables, the string quartet playing softly, crystal glasses glinting in the golden light. Rodriguez tilted his head. "Ma'am, this clearly looks like a private wedding. Can you point out the actual disturbance?" Margaret raised her phone to over 300 live stream viewers. "See, this whole block is being turned into a carnival." Meanwhile, Destiny's Instagram Live had soared to over 800 viewers, comments flooding in. "Somebody protect this couple. That woman's completely out of control." The hashtag #WillowbrookWedding hit the local trending list. Margaret slapped a stack of HOA rules, stabbing at a clause, Section 12.4, forbids large gatherings without advance notice. Devon calmly handed their permits to the officers. "Everything here is fully approved by the city." Margaret screeched, "Forgery." Just then, Rodriguez took a radio call, his eyes flicking to Devon with a look of recognition. Martinez faced Margaret squarely. "Ma'am, we need to verify the permits and check noise levels before making any decision." Margaret shrilled, "I'm a taxpayer here. My word is enough." Elderly guests clutched their chairs, some checking blood sugar monitors from stress. The whole reception seemed to hold its breath, waiting for judgment. Children clung to their parents wide-eyed at the shouting adults. Mrs. Patterson emerged from number 3, clutching her violation log. "Margaret's right. We have to protect property values." She scribbled notes, cars parked out of alignment, decorations, overdone, even potential fire hazards. Mr. Kozlov raised his phone. "Current reading 58 decibels. City law allows up to 75 on weekends." The numbers were clear, but Margaret waved them away, meaningless when our whole neighborhood identity is at risk. Her phone buzzed with over 100 comments in 10 minutes. Some supported her, but many pushed back. "Margaret, this is too much. Let them celebrate. You're sounding prejudiced." Frantic, she deleted critical comments while still live streaming to more than 1,000 viewers. "I've documented everything: noise, traffic, suspicious behavior. I'm protecting our property from dangerous outsiders." At that moment, the best man, Captain Washington, in his decorated marine blues, stepped forward. The medals on his chest and the discipline in his stance drew instant attention from the officers. Yet Margaret remained blind to the shift. Neighbors lined the sidewalks, phones raised, recording from every angle. From her window, old Mrs. Sinclair shook her head, not at the wedding, but at Margaret's unraveling. Rodriguez pulled out the department's calibrated sound meter and read the display, 62 decibels, fully within the legal limit. His voice rang clear, cutting through the heat of the moment. Margaret's face flushed crimson. She screamed, "Since when do these people get to decide what's legal in my neighborhood?" The crowd gasped, sharp intakes of breath and furious whispers rolling together. Online, the comments exploded. "What did she just say? Oh my God, screen record this. This is 2024, not 1954. The truth was laid bare before thousands of viewers. Devon locked his jaw, fighting back anger, while Father Williams rested a steadying hand on his nephew's shoulder, reminding him that their family had endured worse, though a wedding day should never have to bear this. 2 more patrol cars arrived, not for any real violation, but because the crowd kept growing. Sergeant Thompson stepped in, a seasoned gaze sweeping the scene. "What are we dealing with here?" he asked. Rodriguez answered, flicking a quick glance toward Devon. "Noise complaint, sir. All permits and conditions appear fully lawful." Margaret overheard an erupted lawful look around. This is chaos. There are drugs gangs, illegal immigrants. The accusations rattled out like gunfire, more desperate by the second. But Devon stood like stone, his wedding band flashing as he tightened his fist. An engine's roar pulled every eye to the corner. The Channel 7 news van swung onto the block. Reporter Sarah Kim and her crew spilled out cameras snapping to life. Within minutes, 2 more news trucks followed. The crowd buzzed. Social feeds detonated. Margaret's eyes brightened as if salvation had arrived. She rushed forward, smoothed her hair, and tugged her designer blouse straight. When Sarah Kim asked, "Ma'am, can you tell us what's happening here?" Margaret thrust out an accusatory arm. "These people moved into our neighborhood and do whatever they want. Loud music blocked streets, ignoring standards. We pay taxes for peace and quiet, not this." Every word landed in high-definition broadcast instantly to thousands watching live. Within a few minutes, the combined live streams topped 1,500 viewers, edited clips flooding Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Teenagers in the neighborhood added new angles, turning the block into a multi-camera show. The Facebook group Willowbrook Community Watch erupted in dueling comments, defenders and critics clashing in real time. Devon stayed silent eyes, measuring each move, then glanced at his platinum watch, 4:12 p.m., only 3 minutes until the ceremony. Zara blinked back tears, her dream day dissolving under the glare of local media and angry neighbors. "Officers," Devon said evenly, "my wife has waited long enough. Please allow us to continue." Margaret threw herself in front of the aisle, shouting, "No one proceeds until this illegal gathering is dealt with." Arms crossed, she planted herself like a barricade. The string quartet kept playing a gentle piece, creating a surreal split-screen grace set against chaos. Officer Martinez stepped forward with a warning. "Ma'am, you are obstructing a lawfully permitted event." Margaret yelled again, this time angling for the lens. "I'm protecting our neighborhood. Someone has to stand up to this invasion." The word invasion spread like poison, freezing the crowd. Online, thousands of comments hammered in. Did she just call a wedding an invasion? Save that hashtag. In seconds, #Willowbrook Wedding surged alongside #Willowbrook Karen, both spiking on local trends. Devon moved forward slowly, sliding a hand into his jacket pocket. The crowd held its breath. His voice came low and steady, carrying authority. "Ma'am, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding." He slipped off his tuxedo jacket, revealing a white shirt with the city seal finely embroidered at the collar. The metallic thread caught the late sun. He folded the jacket with care, then drew a leather wallet from the inner pocket and produced an official identification card. He approached Officer Rodriguez and offered it with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to leadership. "Good afternoon, officers." Rodriguez glanced down, stiffened, and snapped to attention. "Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor." The words echoed, and the crowd went dead silent. Margaret's phone trembled in her hand as nearly 2,000 live viewers erupted. "Wait, he's the mayor. She called the cops on the mayor's wedding. This Karen is done." Margaret staggered, eyes wide, breath hitching. "Mr. Mayor," how Devon smiled calmly. "I'm Devon Williams, mayor of Willowbrook. We've met at council meetings when you raised concerns about noise in the landscaping contract." The revelation cracked like thunder, racing across social media faster than anything else that day. Destiny's Instagram Live blew past 3,000 viewers, and TikTok launched #MayorWedding onto the national trending list. The comments poured in. "Best twist of the year, mayor's wedding ambushed by a Karen. This belongs in a movie." Margaret retreated, heels ticking on the concrete. Memory flooded back the neighbor who carried her groceries when her ankle hurt the man who waved every morning the anonymous donor to the church fund. All the same person, the mayor she had just humiliated before thousands. Sarah Kim's camera whirred to lock focus on Devon. Her professional voice rose above the crowd. "Mr. Mayor Williams, we had no idea this was your wedding. How do you feel right now?" Sarah held the mic. Devon nodded, the easy cadence of a public figure returning to him. "Yes, it's my wedding day. My wife Zara and I wanted a warm, simple ceremony in our neighborhood. Across the street, Margaret's phone buzzed non-stop, the office line, Harold's number, even her elderly mother, every alert cresting at the very moment her outburst spread across every platform, transforming a private conflict into a citywide spectacle. There must be a mistake. Margaret muttered, her voice still feeding a dozen live streams. You can't be the mayor. You're just what Mrs. Whitmore Devon asked lightly, a challenge wrapped in courtesy. 17 cameras snapped to her face. Bias collided head-on with reality, and a tight, suffocating silence fell, a live, on-air short circuit everyone could feel. Captain Jerome Washington lifted his dress cap in a formal gesture. Captain Washington, also the best man. I can confirm his identity. Sergeant Thompson stepped forward, respect in his eyes. Sir, we apologize for the interruption. Devon kept the tempo of a leader. No apology needed. You responded appropriately to a citizen complaint. On the porch, Margaret stared at her screen as the viewer count surged higher. The Wi-Fi choked, but cellular data kept pushing her story across the map. No more escape hatches. Ma'am, Officer Rodriguez said, shifting into a procedural tone. We need to close out your complaint. Everything here appears properly permitted and compliant. Permitted, Margaret croaked. So he signed his own wedding permit. Devon answered with a gentle smile. All permits went through Parks and Recreation. I recused myself from all decisions touching this address to avoid any conflict of interest. That's the required ethics process. He opened a thick folder, as methodical as a man who lives by systems. Case file number 20241847, submitted March 15th, approved April 2nd, posted for public comment for 30 days. Fee paid in the amount of $2,847. Liability coverage of $2 million. Martinez scanned the codes and nodded. All valid. Noise level within the residential weekend limit. Grandmother Evelyn advanced bracing on her walker, the city council pin catching the sun as she moved moral ballast for the entire block. He served this community for 6 years too, on Council 4 as mayor. Youngest mayor Willowbrook has had in 70 years. Margaret stared at the woman she just dismissed. You're on the city council. I served for 40 years, Evelyn replied kindly, but firm. And I helped write the very community standards you just cited, though not quite accurately. The photographer kept clicking, not dreamy wedding portraits anymore, but a photographic record of the day that reshaped how a community understood power, prejudice, and resilience. Social media metrics spiked vertically. Instagram Live passed 4,000 viewers. TikTok drew 15,000 views in just 20 minutes. The hashtag #MayorWedding appeared more than 8,000 times. Facebook shares rolled at 200 per minute across 3 states. The business page for Whitmore Landscaping was review-bombed in real time, flooded with 1-star ratings after viewers discovered the company in the city's contractor registry. Local news apps pushed alerts. Breaking: Willowbrook mayor's wedding disrupted by neighbor complaint backfires, with signs of bias. Watch now. Devon stayed gracious. Mrs. Whitmore, your company has served this city's parks well. Whitmore Landscaping has maintained Memorial Park City Hall grounds and our athletic facilities for 5 years. The words cut like knives, the praise underscoring the gravity of her mistake, all unfolding before thousands of witnesses ready to screenshot. Your 5-year contract covered the renovation of Memorial Park's seasonal flower plantings, stadium upkeep, and holiday decorations. Your crew beautified this community. Margaret clutched her phone, knowing her lifeline contracts worth millions annually hung by a thread. Mr. Mayor, I didn't know. This is all a terrible misunderstanding, Margaret stammered. I'm not sure which part qualifies as a misunderstanding, Devon replied evenly, never raising his voice, each word setting a standard. You made your feelings about these people very clear, and those words are now on record in multiple streams. Labor lawyers across the city began saving the footage, the scent of litigation already in the air. News vans from Channel 9, Channel 12, and 3 independent streamers poured in, turning a quiet street into a national stage. Ma'am Rodriguez concluded formally. Do you wish to amend your complaint? Noise levels are lawful permits valid. This is a legal gathering. Neighbors who once supported her quietly retreated. Mrs. Patterson tucked her file away and disappeared indoors. Mr. Kozlov deleted his video and slipped off. I want to speak to your superior, Margaret muttered. I am the superior, Sergeant Thompson said clearly, and I've worked alongside Mayor Williams for 4 years on community police partnership initiatives. He has changed the relationship here in Willowbrook. Devon glanced at his watch. It was past ceremony time. Officers, with your permission, we would like to proceed. My wife has waited long enough. Of course, Sir Thompson answered. We'll ensure no further interruptions. On the porch, Margaret stood alone, watching her world collapse in real time. Her live stream still ran more than 2,000 viewers, many recording screens to preserve the moment forever. Through windows, children asked their parents why the man in the suit stayed polite to the shouting lady. The parents explained softly about respect and the rule of law. Zara stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. Devon, let's have the ceremony. We've waited long enough. Devon smiled at his bride, a warm smile in the storm, then turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay and witness a wedding of love in this community. The string quartet shifted into a brighter melody, but Devon had one last move, a pivot that would redefine power, community, and accountability in Willowbrook. He adjusted his cufflinks, squared himself toward the cameras as if in council chambers. Since we are gathered here as a community, his voice carried down Maple Ridge Drive, this is the proper time to restate our civic standards and contractor responsibilities. Margaret's face drained of color. She knew what was coming. Devon borrowed the wedding planner's tablet and opened city data. Current noise level 64 decibels within the weekend residential limit of 75 until 10 p.m. Martinez cross-checked with the department's meter. Confirmed no violation. The event file was submitted properly, processing fee paid, fire safety inspection cleared on May 1st, praised for exceeding safety standards. Margaret stepped back half a pace, every procedure airtight. No foothold left for her complaint. Devon turned to regulations. Mrs. Whitmore is a longtime contractor. You know the code, don't you? Yes, sir. Charter Section 12.37 states all contractors must demonstrate respect for the community and professional conduct in dealing with residents. Discriminatory or harassing behavior contrary to Willowbrook's values of inclusion may trigger contract review, suspension, or termination through due process protecting both sides. The music still played, but the atmosphere shifted, tension gave way to order and justice. And at the very spot where bias had been exposed, vows of marriage were about to rise, a parallel declaration that a community grows stronger when it chooses respect over fear. The crowd held perfectly still as Devon continued, not with emotion, but with sharp, lawful precision. His voice was clear, each number slicing cold as steel. Whitmore Landscaping currently holds city contracts totaling $2,300,000 annually. Memorial Park renovation, $847,000. Spring plantings, $234,000. Athletic facility maintenance, $1,200,000. Holiday decorations, $89,000. The crowd shivered. Later, some reporters would describe it as an execution by PowerPoint. Devon pressed on. In just 2 hours, the mayor's office has received 847 formal complaints. The city's anti-discrimination hotline logged more than 300 calls. Our business and tourism councils are already questioning Willowbrook's reputation for inclusivity. Online #Karen Whitmore and #Mayor Weddings surged side by side, while Margaret's company rating on Google plunged to 1.2 stars after more than 3,000 one-star reviews. Mrs. Whitmore Devon said, eyes locked on her. Would you like to review the footage before we proceed further? Your words. These people, ghetto celebration invasion, were captured from 17 sources, watched live by roughly 15,000 people. Margaret protested desperately. Sir, I didn't mean to be prejudiced. I was only worried about noise, about property values. My words were taken out of context. Devon repeated, calm but cutting context. Then let's revisit city policy. He pulled up a signed document. In 2022, your company committed to the city's anti-discrimination pledge under the motto United in Diversity. The irony was stark. Margaret had signed the very principle she had just violated. Devon added, "Your company's revenue rose 23% thanks to the Minority Contractor Support Program. 35% of your annual contracts come from projects in diverse neighborhoods. You profited directly from the diversity you now reject." His words landed like artillery, laying bare the gulf between benefit and behavior. "Sarah Kim broke in, Mr. Mayor. What consequences face Whitmore Landscaping?" Devon answered with professional calm. 3 steps: immediate review, a public hearing within 72 hours, and a community impact assessment. Margaret's phone rang endlessly. Partner, staff, suppliers. News in the business community was spreading faster than she could keep up. Devon concluded Tuesday morning at 9, the City Council will convene a public session to review Whitmore Landscaping. You'll have the right to defend yourself. The community will have the right to comment. The hearing will be live-streamed for full transparency. Margaret broke into tears. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Those words don't reflect who I truly am." But Devon did not waver. Partnership is not built on apologies offered after exposure. It is built on consistent conduct. Values must be proven in action, not reaction. Sergeant Thompson asked, "Mr. Mayor, should we file an official report?" Devon nodded. "Please collect all witness statements and media evidence. The city attorney's office will need everything for the upcoming hearing." Margaret froze, realizing that 23 of her employees could lose their livelihoods because of her outburst that afternoon. But Devon stayed fair. "I want to emphasize every decision will consider the impact on employees' families. Civic justice must balance accountability with fairness. But community standards must be upheld. Public funds cannot sustain partners who defy our shared values." A reporter asked, "What is your view of Willowbrook's racial equity pledge?" Devon answered with the poise of leadership. "Today shows the system is working. When bias appears, the community responds. When a contractor violates, accountability follows. When leaders are tested, we choose justice." Margaret pleaded, "Mr. Mayor, I have lived here 15 years. One mistake cannot destroy everything I've built." Devon paused, then gestured toward his family and guests. "A mistake can be accidental, but your words today were not slips. They revealed attitudes deeply rooted and directly opposed to your commitments. These are my neighbors, my constituents, my family. Your denial of their place here raises serious questions about your fitness as a partner." The crowd listened intently, as if attending a master class in principled leadership. Devon concluded Tuesday's hearing will determine whether Whitmore Landscaping can prove real change, or whether Willowbrook needs a more suitable partner. Margaret stood alone, her business empire trembling with every word. Online viewers climbed past 3,000, many calling it a professional tribunal in real time. Devon turned to the officers and press. "Thank you for your professionalism. Please respect the ceremony. Mrs. Whitmore, I will see you at 9 a.m. Tuesday." His words closed the door. Justice would follow due process, and Margaret would bear the consequences. The wedding finally began, witnessed by more than 200 guests, dozens of reporters, and thousands watching online. Devon held Zara's hand as Father William spoke. "We gather today to witness love triumph over adversity." Each phrase affirmed that grace could rise above hatred and dignity could overcome prejudice. Margaret peeked through her curtain phone, buzzing nonstop with reporters, angry clients, and anxious staff. Within hours, the story spread across local television. Willowbrook mayor's wedding disrupted by prejudiced neighbor city contracts under review. Whitmore Landscaping's website crashed under hostile traffic. Yelp froze its review feature. Google business ratings collapsed to 1.1 stars with over 4,000 one-star reviews, citing unprofessional and discriminatory behavior. By Tuesday morning, the council chamber was packed. Margaret entered with her attorney hands trembling as she clutched her statement and medical notes on anxiety and psychological distress. Her voice faltered. "I acknowledge unconscious bias and poor judgment. My words were unacceptable, not reflective of my true values or commitment to serve the community." 23 residents spoke over 4 hours. Devon recused himself, leaving Deputy Mayor Catherine Jenkins to preside. Mrs. Sinclair rose her English accent, lilting, 40 years here, I have never heard such ugliness at a wedding. But I've also seen Margaret help me carry winter groceries. People can change if they choose. The Willowbrook City Council delivered a verdict both firm and compassionate. Whitmore Landscaping would not be stripped of contracts immediately, but placed on probationary status for 18 months. During that time, Margaret herself must complete 40 hours of cultural competency training, submit quarterly diversity reports, and perform 100 hours of community service at the Willowbrook Community Center. This is not punishment, Deputy Mayor Jenkins clarified. It is rehabilitation, ensuring contractors reflect our community's values. Reforms Devon initiated from the crisis took root at once. The Willowbrook Welcome Initiative launched within a month, creating new systems for handling discrimination complaints and community disputes. The Neighborhood Watch app now required verified identity, no more anonymous slurs. Quarterly Good Neighbor Awards began celebrating residents who built harmony. New contractor agreements added strict anti-discrimination clauses with clear expectations for conduct. Margaret at first attended training begrudgingly, but over time, her eyes changed. 6 months later, at a community forum, she admitted, I never realized how my words sounded to others. Impact matters more than intent. Her service hours at the center placed her in daily contact with diverse families she once feared. Faces and real stories slowly replaced stereotypes. Her business changed as well. Margaret hired 3 employees from underrepresented communities, not by mandate, but because she learned hidden talent existed. They're the best workers I've ever had, she told Devon when they crossed paths at a grocery store 9 months after the wedding. I nearly lost my entire career because of my own ignorance. A year later, Willowbrook was profiled in Municipal Monthly as a model of inclusive governance. The very company once teetering on collapse won the Excellence in Diversity Award from the Regional Contractors Association. On Devon and Zara's first anniversary, the community marked the date with a Unity Day barbecue in Memorial Park. Hundreds of residents came together with food, music, and fellowship across cultural lines. Margaret contributed landscaping services, initially supervised but eventually welcomed as a trusted partner. Her story was even added to school curricula as a living lesson in change and redemption. Property values in Willowbrook rose 12% within a year, thanks to the city's reputation for turning diversity challenges into triumphs. What was once seen as a stain became proof of systemic leadership and unyielding resilience. 3 years later, Devon Williams once again stood on the very street where Margaret had thrown the wedding bouquet into the gutter. But this time he held a proclamation in his hand. Willowbrook had been recognized by the National League of Cities as America's model inclusive community. The impact stretched far beyond expectations. Harvard's Kennedy School had published a case study titled Crisis Leadership in Local Government, the Williams Wedding Response. 23 cities across the United States had adopted variations of the Willowbrook Welcome Policy. At the Unity Day Festival, Margaret stepped to the podium, her hands steadier now. 3 years ago, I stood here as the worst version of myself. Today, I understand a true community means everyone belongs. Her landscaping company had become a pioneer in inclusive hiring, securing contracts with 5 other cities. I'm not proud of who I once was, she said, but I am grateful for the second chance this community gave me to become a better person. The applause that followed was not for past mistakes, but for the sincerity of the change witnessed over 3 years of effort. Devon's approval rating soared to 89%, the highest in state history. Zara expanded her charitable work to 12 neighboring cities. Their wedding story was turned into a documentary, Real-Life Stories, When Prejudice Meets Justice, winning awards at multiple social justice film festivals. What began as a media nightmare had become the spark for policy reforms that protected countless families from similar pain. The series' Golden Echoes noted quiet strength often defeats the loudness of prejudice more effectively than any confrontation. Devon proved that discipline and reason triumph over intimidation when leaders choose systematic justice instead of emotional reaction. Young people drew lessons about power privilege and the possibility of redemption. Margaret's transformation stood as proof even the deepest prejudice can change when paired with community accountability and steady effort. The influence of the story did not stop at Willowbrook. City leaders nationwide cited the Williams Standard when writing contractor conduct policies. Police departments used the incident as training material on de-escalation and community engagement. The story of Devon and Margaret became living evidence that racial reconciliation is not an illusion if systems evolve alongside the human heart. In his Unity Day speech, Devon closed with words etched deep. Real change happens when we choose to build bridges instead of walls. Turn conflict into dialogue and prove that our differences make us stronger. Your voice has the power to create that change. Have you ever witnessed prejudice in your own community? Share your story in the comments. Real experiences create real transformation. He looked directly into the camera voice. Steady, subscribe to Golden Echoes for more stories that prove organized justice always outlasts destructive prejudice. Tap the notification bell because transformation only comes when communities choose responsibility over rage. What would you do in Devon's place? How can we build more inclusive neighborhoods together? Share your thoughts below. And remember, the strongest response to hate is not anger, but organized change to protect those who come after us. Share this video with someone who needs to see it quiet. Strength always defeats the noise of prejudice. Together we are writing better stories for the next generation.